down to earth. Do you remember? Why have we taken birth? Do you remember?
It appears to me, anyway, that when people don't have that, when people feel separated from life, separated from spirit, separated from their neighbor and that's when they can fall into that severe depression or that devil-may-care attitude that says, what's the difference, what I do here? It's not going to matter in the least bit. And for me, I have done that. I've been in that place. And yet, even in that place of feeling separated, of feeling terribly depressed, feeling that life had no meaning and why should I go on, there was something that kept urging me. Something that kept nudging me and saying, this isn't true. This isn't true. Look around you. This isn't true. Knowledge builds upon knowledge. When you're in the first grade and you move to second grade, you don't give up everything you learned in first grade to move to second grade. You expand upon it. When you move from 8th grade to high school, which is a drastic change for most children, you don't give up those 8 previous years or the time that you lived with your family. You simply expand your knowledge. You expand what you know. You expand your experience. And so for me, I have to believe that when I leave here, I'm simply expanding my experience. I'm moving from 8th grade to college. I'm skipping the high school. Been there, done that. Anyway. So one of the things that I like to look at for myself occasionally is, what does this do for me? How can I believe in this more than I have ever believed in it before? Because there's still those little hesitancies here and there. And part of this is a belief in connection, a belief that I am so connected with spirit that there is nothing separate from me. And yet I know on one hand that if I had a total belief that I was spirit, that I might not even need to be here in this physical form. So if that's true, then what's holding me back? What's holding me back from knowing that eternal love that never stops? What's holding me back from knowing to such a degree that life is eternal that I can walk as Jesus walked on the earth? What's holding me back from knowing that when somebody moves on in my life, that it isn't a reflection of who I am and bring up fear, which it often does, doesn't it, when somebody leaves? What's holding me back? So I look at myself and I like to think, well, what usually holds me back is fear of some sort. Fear of separation mostly. And it's not just separation that now the body of this person has died and so I can't hug them anymore. Because for me, I've had proof that that isn't the end. I had a wonderful experience of my dad dying. And yes, it was very sad and frustrating at the time. But then I had a dream, one of those dreams that was real, more real than real. I could smell my dad's aftershave. I could feel his touch. He never said a word to me, but I felt total acceptance from him. Just total love, understanding, and acceptance. Now, my dad and I did not always get along real well, at all. I kind of get stubborn at times, and I don't do real good when somebody tries to always control me. And my dad, that's how he was raised, was the father was in charge, and that's all there was. So we didn't always see eye to eye on things. In fact, we didn't see eye to eye on most things. So when this happened, when this sense of just absolute acceptance happened in that dream that seemed so real, I had to feel that there was something so much greater than what death shows us. If my dad had died and there was nothing more, then how could I experience something like that afterwards? How could I experience the depth of it? The forgiveness in it, the love that was contained in it. So what I find for me is I have to work with this fear of separation, and I have to let it go. And most of the time, I feel pretty good about that. I don't really feel too separated. But then, once in a while, somebody comes up, and maybe they're a beggar on the street, or say some cross words to me, or does something like cut me off in traffic. And immediately what I want to do is say, what are they doing? What are they creating? And when I look at that, I go, I'm separating myself. The instant I start saying they, the instant I start saying you instead of me, I'm separating us. I'm separating myself from you, and in a sense, I'm separating myself from my eternity. Because if we're all one in spirit, the minute I separate you, I'm separating myself. I'm pulling myself away from that. And that's not how I choose to be. That's not how I always am. I don't always remember that connectedness, that oneness, but that's not how I choose to be. I choose to remember that. I also find that I have to learn to listen to my intuition for this. I have to listen to my intuition. Why? Because the intuition is that connection between God and myself. The intuition doesn't lie to me. Have you ever noticed that? When you follow your intuition, that first inkling that you get on a subject, doesn't it always lead you right? It's when you listen to the next voice that says, but, or what if, or that can't be true, that leads you wrong. When I listen to my intuition, it always leads me right, because it is that connection between myself and spirit without limitations, without fears, without those doubts that come in. And so I try to practice that. I try to practice strengthening that muscle, because the intuition is just like your muscle. You know, if you don't use your muscle very much, what happens to it? It atrophies. It turns into nothing. It gets very weak. But when I listen to my intuition, the more I listen to it, the louder it becomes. In fact, I've told people, I like to use in my treatments sometimes, I'll say, I no longer have a small, still voice. My voice is loud and clear and plainly explains to me what I need to know, so I don't have to guess. And you know something? It does it. It does it. Every time I use my intuition and I ask it to be loud enough that I can hear it, it gets louder. It gets stronger, and it leads me down the path that I need to go. I've used it for such things as finding the appropriate doctor, finding my keys when I've lost them, or my glasses, which I commonly do. I've used it to know when to go take somebody to the doctors, for instance. My mom is pretty stubborn, and she's 85 years old, and it's kind of like, I'm not going to the doctor. Oh, yes, you are. There's those times that I need to take her. But I use my intuition to tell me when. I'll use my intuition to tell me how do I approach somebody lovingly so that I don't make it a separation between me and them, and thereby a separation between me and God. I use my intuition to ask myself, what is the next loving thing that I could do to strengthen a relationship that hasn't been strong? And I'm coming back to this connection because it's this connection that allows us to understand our immortality. It's this the connection between each other that allows us to not be afraid anymore, to not separate ourselves from who we really are. My connection, my eternality is through each one of you, as yours is through me. That's why life is so precious. That is why we have such an urge, such a urge to be alive. That's why when we get to those points when somebody is depressed and sad and hurting, that we want to help them so much, because we recognize that they are the reflection of who we are. And as long as they are hurting, we are hurting. It isn't a time to turn away from them, but to turn towards them. What would love have me do in this situation? What would my intuition call me to do? To turn away? To separate? Or to include and be whole? My deepest reason that I choose to work on this is because I want to be happy. I don't know about any of you out there, but I want to be happy. Not just the happiness that comes from getting a new thing of some sort, getting a new car or getting a new TV or whatever. I mean, surely that can bring happiness. But I want to be happy with a joy that's deep inside, that is so conscious, so secure, that nothing out there can take it away. Isn't that kind of the goal of all of us, to find that peace, to find that security inside that allows us to stay strong right where we are, no matter what chaos is happening, and to be able to look chaos in the face and say, this isn't the way it has to be, and what can I do to help this? What can I do to change this? Not maybe physically, but emotionally, mentally. We can either add to the problem or we can take away from the problem. And if we do nothing, we're adding to the problem. When we do nothing, we are adding to the problem. So how can I change this? How can I become so loving that I allow it to change and I allow that eternal spirit to flow through the means of myself, through the means of me? I know I will never die. I might die a physical death, but I'll never die. I'll be back here to bug each and every one of you. And push you along and say, join me, join me. Because we are all brothers and sisters. We are all one in spirit. Even the person who is the worst criminal out there doing atrocious things is doing it out of a twisted sense of love, because they want to be loved. They want to know something for themselves. Even if they've given up completely, there's still that little bit in them that says help. And we might not want to be around that person, obviously, but it doesn't mean we should give them our hate, our anger, our fear. We need to give them our love. And remember that they are as much spirit as each one of us. And so if you'll please join me, we'll do a treatment. Oh, wait a minute. I got a little thing in here I want to share with you. I love this little thing. Yeah, it's from the Chicken Soup for the Soul, and many of you are probably very familiar with these books. They're wonderful books. And this is called Sashi. Soon after her brother was born, little Sashi began to ask her parents to leave her alone with the new baby. They worried that, like most 4-year-olds, she might feel jealous and want to hit or shake him, so they said no. But she showed no signs of jealousy, and she treated the baby with kindness, and her pleas to be left alone with him became more urgent. They decided to allow it. Elated, they went into the baby's room and shut the door. Elated, she went into the baby's room and shut the door, but it was open a crack, enough for her curious parents to peek in and listen. They saw little Sashi walk quietly up to her baby brother, put her face close to his, and say quietly, "Baby, tell me what God feels like. I'm starting to forget. Tell me what God feels like." Something for each one of us to remember. Each one of us to know deep within us. For the eternity of God is our eternity, and our eternity is God's. So please join me in the treatment. There is only this one life that is eternal, everlasting, without end. This life that encompasses everything that I see, taste, touch, smell, know, and so much more. So much that I cannot sense it with my 5 senses. And yet, there is something within me that senses the vastness of spirit, the beauty of spirit, the love of spirit. And as I recognize this love that is eternally within me, which accepts me totally without condition, I open up to know the truth about myself. I am an extension of this love. I am an extension to love and to be loved. And in knowing this, I am an extension of that eternality of spirit. I am the expression of spirit. I am the wholeness of spirit. I am the truth of spirit. And the only thing that can stop that from expressing in my life is when I close it off, when I turn away and refuse to look, when I feel separate and I shut someone off. And so today, I declare my freedom from fear. I declare my freedom by seeing each and every person as part of myself, as a reflection of who I am. Seeing each and every person as part of that eternal beingness of spirit. And in this, I allow the joy to fill me and the peace of God that allows me to have the peace within, allows me to be firm in who I am and my beliefs, allows me to be courageous and strong and filled with an eternal grace of spirit. I no longer need to go down those roads of fear, for I have been down them before, and they no longer serve me. And as I fill those places in my life with love, they are gone. I ask my mind to remind me, to give me a nudge if I start to move down a path of separation, to nudge me and let me know. And for this, I am so grateful to know that my mind is at my command, to know that I am the essence of spirit, so I don't have to look for it. It is simply right here, expressing as this being. To know that I have a body, but I am more than this body. I am more than all my possessions. I am more than this life, and that it will never end. I will keep growing. I will keep expanding. I will keep knowing myself as spirit in a greater degree. And so with this gratitude and a newfound sense of freedom, I release this treatment into the law, knowing it is already done. And together we say, and so it is.